Okay, well, welcome everybody to the ESS Finance Subcommittee meeting on January 8th, 2026. I will start with, first of all, make sure we have a quorum. I know that Lisa, you were keeping track of who's here. I know Amy's not here. And Sherry is the only one in the office, so I know she was here. We have Geraldine. Is Susan with us?
Yes.
Okay. And Kelly Spees.
Nope, not yet.
Okay. Mel.
Yes.
I think Kelly is out of town until tomorrow.
Okay. So no Kelly and no Amy, but we've got myself, Mel, Sherry, Geraldine, and Susan.
We're good.
Okay, we're good. All right. Thank you for taking the time to do that. All right. Has everyone had a chance to review the December 4th minutes? Have any questions, additions, deletions? If not, I would take a motion for approval.
This is Geraldine. I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Geraldine. Do I have a second? Second by
Susan
Sherry in
Rubel.
the chat. Oh, sorry, Susan.
That's okay.
Sherry beat you to it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move on to the financial reports. First off with the accounts receivable update. Yay!
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report. Good job, guys. Okay, we'll move on to Samantha, the January summary of the December ESS payments.
All right, accounts payable for December. We have a few items highlighted here for Tyler, Connor, and Manny. These were mileage reimbursements to get those candidates for the developer position to come into the office for interviews. So the 273, the 358.40, and the $40.60. Additionally, the Iowa Solutions bill for 3,750. That was the final payment on the computer refresh that was approved in the budget in in November. We did take advantage of a Black Friday deal, so we did get those a little bit sooner than what we were expecting to get. And then also, we are missing the Tyler invoice in this report. I just received it this morning, so I will add that to the report and then update the website.
And that's, Samantha, that's for redaction, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's a normal month-to-month expense.
Yeah.
They were just a little bit late on billing, probably because of the holidays.
Okay.
Credit card expenses for December. The 3612 is and also the 2310 are both tax refunds. This was from the monitor purchases in November. So Amazon did reimburse us for that tax. The 1782 was for cords for the monitors. We needed to get some different cords. The cords that they sent us weren't going to work with the boxes that we have. The $96 is the annual subscription for Microsoft that normally hits in December. The 4,199 was for the new Apple computer for the new developer. That has been received, and I think Myrna is getting it up to date and getting everything figured out for the new developer, Connor. The $160.49 was for the Apple Care for that new computer, and this will be an annual expense. You can expect to see this every December. The 259 was for the annual subscription renewal for Gravity Forms. And then the $10.50 was a tax credit on the Apple Care for the new Mac computer for the developer. At the very bottom, you'll see the first bill from Indeed. This was for the executive director job posting. And we do plan on having that live for a little bit longer, and the search committee should expect some resumes to review today. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Samantha? If not, I would entertain a motion for approval of the January summary of December ESS payments. Do I have a motion?
This is Mel. I can move to approve.
Thanks, Mel, and I will go ahead and second that motion. Any other additional discussion? Then we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Let's move on to the January Fund 255 reimbursement invoice.
Okay. On the January 1st, Fund 255 reimbursement invoice to the state treasurer came in at $49,304.89. The two invoices from December are also attached here. I'd be happy to answer any questions, or I'd ask for your acceptance and approval to send this to the state treasurer's office for reimbursement.
Thanks, Samantha. Anyone have any questions, comments? Pretty straightforward. If not, I would take a motion for approval.
This is Mel. I'll move to approve.
Thanks, Mel. Do I have a second?
This is Geraldine. I'll second.
Thank you, Geraldine. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move on to the November 2025 financial reports with Samantha.
Okay, the BT settlement account began with the balance of 0 and ended with the balance of 0. And the account was successfully reconciled. The Bankers Trust money market sweep account began with a balance of $1,367,469.81 and ended with a balance of $1,572,297.02. Total interest for the month came in at 2.79%. So we were seeing a little bit higher percentages, but due to the tax or the interest rate cuts, this did go down a little bit. So our interest for the month was $2,775.76. You will see this go down just a little bit more for December also. Actually, I think it was higher. I'm sorry. So this actually rose quite a bit for December. So in the next meeting, you'll see that this is higher than we expected it to be, even given those rate cuts that we've been seeing. And the reconciliation for the money market sweep account. And the drawdown account with a cleared balance of $76,578.80. Profit and loss for November, budgeted income came in at $146,637.92 against budgeted expenses of $105,664.14 with a budgeted net income of $40,973.78. Profit and loss in whole for November, again, budgeted income at $146,367.92 with revolving income at $3,072,922.87 with a gross profit of $3,219,560.79. The main difference between the P&L I just showed you and this P&L would be the reserve expenses. So you can see the redaction expenses for November came in at $341.48 This is for all the back file submission or uploads into the system that also need to be redacted. And then the depreciation expense of $22,604.75. Revolving expenses for the month came in at $3,072,937.50, with total expenses at $3,201,547.87, with net income for the month of November at $18,012.92. 2024 to 2025 November comparison. In 2024, we had just started the money market income. So this is approximately 1 week of interest. The OD service, this is for the on-demand for Lynn County, which we are no longer servicing in 2025. So that's the main difference there. We had $113.63 in service fees last year, and there'll be none going forward. E-submission fees up just a little bit from last year. I think when we get to the metrics, you'll see that December came in higher. I think you'll be a little bit more pleased with December's activity and actually for the whole year for 2025. MOU, we are not currently doing in 2025. However, last year, November, we still had the MOU. Fund 255 reimbursement, a 16% increase over 2024, with a gross profit of an 8.8% increase, totaling $11,857.86. The bookkeeping, just as a reminder, we did switch accounts. So this bookkeeping CPA is actually the accountant account, and that is just moved down further in the P&L to align with the other positions in the office. But I do have those. Everyone in the office is actually all the ESS employees accounts highlighted here. In November 2024, we did have those 3 payrolls, where in 2025, the 3 payrolls hit in October. So that would be the difference in why they're so much higher. The office tech support, this was due to the computer refresh with Iowa Solutions. And the bank account analysis fee up 37%, but just as a reminder, because we have the money market sweep account, we're not getting that extra savers credit from Bankers Trust. Computer equipment for the marketing position, this was due to the computer refresh, also the customer service computer equipment and the accounting computer equipment. The DB2 I've highlighted here. Last year, we were able to move that back to the budget in November. However, in 2025, we were able to move that back to the budget earlier in the year in August. And then the SUS I have highlighted here. Last year, we did need to purchase a few more licenses with them. We did not do that this year in November. And then the $674 for the tech support and development was due to mileage reimbursements. Tech consulting would be the Kelly Wallace contract, where he's logging in and helping us finish a few projects that needed to be done. But total budgeted expenses compared to 2024, we're down 39.5%, with net income up 207.7%. The balance sheet for November, the BT settlement account, $455,872.80. Just a reminder, this is not the amount that's in the account. This is the amount of unreconciled transactions in the accounting software. with the BT money market sweep account at $1,572,297.02. In total, assets and liabilities at November 30th equaled $2,872,776.39. The credit card opened with a beginning balance of $1,921.85, with the ending balance of $4,590.45. The account was successfully reconciled. Fund 255 for November began with the balance of $169,815.45 and ended with a balance of $171,270.85, with total receipts of $49,304.89. And the reconciliation for the Fund 255 account. And the profit and loss for November at net income of $1,455.40. The balance sheet for the Fund 255 account with total assets and liabilities equaling $171,270.85. I'd be happy to answer any questions on the November financials.
Hey, Sam, I have a question on page 129. So just as a reminder, just put it in my mind straight. So like the fund balance adjustments for software development and redaction reserve, that when we move that to like 450 and 50K, will that be like the end of this last year? Is that entry made?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just have to get the couple of late invoices that I got this morning into the accounting software, and then I'll be moving those balances around as of December 31st. So you'll see that next month.
Gotcha. Okay.
And actually, if I could jump in, I would just affirm that was the intention and part of the action of the coordinating committee to do it with that timing. So yes.
Awesome. Okay. That's the only question I had. Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Samantha or the
Just
team?
say great explanations. I have no questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? If not, I would entertain a motion for the November 2025 financial reports approval.
I can
Sherry
make that
moved.
motion.
Oh, Sherry moved to approve. Susan, would you like to second?
Sure. Yep.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion, comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Samantha, always for your help and explanations. We'll move on to the ESS financial and strategic review metrics. What the heck? Look at that for December. Awesome.
Yeah, I think very surprising from the standpoint of what the history shows. Historically, you look at the back to 2021, and then even last year in 2024, we've in recent history seen upticks in December. This actually ended up being the second highest month of e-submission ever. It was not did not top 2020, but it's beginning to approach those numbers. And I guess I would say from a strategic point of view, when we adopted the budget for 2026, we did not uh, try to be too exuberant in our expectations of would that level be sustained? And so we still try to approach it conservatively. But what this means is that net revenue is going to be a little bit higher, and then maybe if not in the February meeting, but maybe in the May meeting, there may be some additional movement from the operating account into the reserve fund, specifically the software development and maintenance reserve, to permit the ESS committee to say, okay, we can make some investments now. They would be treated as one-time expenditures, not ongoing budget. But there isn't necessarily any organizational or structural changes that would be anticipated. I'm still would take the position that, in the bigger picture, we really do need a bigger development team. Even with the addition of or the replacement of the developers, so that we're at a full 3 developers, the scale of work that needs to be done is just it's almost overwhelming. And so that's if we ever really saw kind of a structural shift in our budget where we had additional resources, that would be that's where I would recommend it. In the meantime, we do have some built-in structural changes from the standpoint that the cost of operating office and cost of the next executive director, whatever you choose to call them, position, we did anticipate that those costs were going to be higher. And what this sustained level of higher submission activity permits you to do is maybe be a little bit more comfortable that the stretches that are going to be made when those adjustments happen, which theoretically would occur, in March and April, you'll be better prepared to handle that and have just a little bit more cushion to work with. So, all in all, very good news in December. Too soon to tell what the trends are in January, but we're starting off ending the year well, and hopefully starting off 2026 with a good trend in hand. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I really don't have anything more to add to the analysis.
Any other comments or questions about that? Let's move on to the finance procedure review. And thank you, Phil, for the memo late yesterday afternoon. That was very helpful.
You bet. It's kind of something as we approach this meeting, thought, it might be good to have something in writing. So if you're listening online, we will be adding the memo to the packet online. It just isn't there yet. And for this meeting, we're going to walk through this step by step anyway, so nobody's going to miss anything. Right. The background on it is that in recent months, there have been discussions about, procedures for the finance subcommittee. The association's working group that went through the policies and procedures, as well as the 28-year agreement, had made a few comments. And there have been some conversations with Jamie Stargell, who was the leader of that working group, about, what kinds of things should be considered. And then we talked about it in the briefly, in that October-November period, but we had a lot going on. We were approving the budget, and we said, hey, we're going to dedicate time in the December meeting to talk about this as a finance subcommittee, which we did. And we also spent some time communicating with the coordinating committee to say, hey, this stuff is being reviewed and we would really like to have your input. So between Stacy and some others, the call went out through those channels to say, does anybody have any suggestions? And I know that some people actually took the initiative to communicate with people in their respective districts to say, hey, do you have anything that you wanted to suggest? I have to be honest and say that there weren't a lot of specific recommendations or changes that came back, but there were some, which we'll talk about. And then, in addition to that, just because we internally, deal with the procedures quite frequently, there were some things that that might be considered common practice for you guys, but really there's nothing in writing in the policy that said we had to do it that way or to provide any guidance. So we took the opportunity to identify some things that could help clarify what the expectations and the procedures would be. And so following the discussion in December, taking that input, what we did is said, okay, well, based on all of the discussion, what would the actual amendment look like? What would we actually propose based on the input that we received so far? And not saying that this is perfect. Certainly, this has not been pre-reviewed by anybody. It's a draft that we prepared for discussion, and you have the option to modify it or make changes, or you also have the option to move it on to the full ESS committee for consideration at probably their February meeting. So if you'll allow me, I'm just going to take a few minutes to walk through the main body of this. If you did see a copy of the memo, it's basically going to say the same thing, so nobody's going to miss out on anything. But I guess the first place we started was the issue or the fact that, in past years, there sort of has been some ambiguity about when appointments are made to the ESS committee and when things should happen. And the first, when we switched over to quarterly meetings for the ESS coordinating committee, those meetings are held, the first meetings are held in February usually. Well, that's 2 months into the calendar year before the ESS committee actually officially designates who the members of the subcommittees are. So the first idea that's being represented here is, can we do something to kind of move that up into the calendar year so that those things are more known? And so the first item really doesn't have to do with the finance subcommittee, but it has to do with getting the ESS coordinating committee to have just a simple organizational meeting to elect their own officers and then put the chair, the newly designated chair of the ESS committee, because the officers of ESS are elected by the committee at their first meeting. So then the chair would be in a position to make those appointments because at least as the policy is currently written, the appointments are actually made by the chair of the committee, not by the president or anybody else. It's the chair of the committee that has had that authority to do it. And so just doing this to say, hey, have an organizational meeting in January, get things started. You don't have to take a lot of other action, but let's do that. And then the modification to section 1.6 subsection 7 at the bottom of the page basically is there to do the same thing, to say that the coordinating committee shall elect its officers at that initial meeting. There is some language that is stricken at the bottom paragraph, removing the language that currently exists relating to the chair appointing the subcommittees. And we're not getting rid of that. We just have kind of relocated it later on in that same section. So if you turn the page then and look at the top of the next page, this is where we say that even though it has been recent practice, we haven't put it in writing anywhere. We're saying, hey, the Secretary Treasurer the the ESS committee should be a standing member of the ESS Finance Subcommittee. And, obviously, Melissa, actually, Natalie has been in that role, and she would kind of officially be a voting member of the finance subcommittee, which we don't really say anywhere, but we sort of have behaved that way. And then the final paragraph in section 1.6 is where we sort of reintroduce the idea that the chair appoints the subcommittees, and the chair appoints potentially a designated staff. So one of the things that we talked about, or that you talked about, was, should other representatives of recorders, like deputy recorders, have the authority or the ability under the policy to serve on the finance committee or on subcommittees. And the preferred language that came back from the various input that we received was that we would use the term designated staff. Okay, and so that's what we went with. So the other thing that is incorporated here that I need to point out is that there was quite a bit of discussion about the idea that, if you're going to be, and this is sort of anticipating future changes, but the idea would be that if you wanted to serve on a subcommittee, you had to be from a county that was participating in the 28-year agreement. Well, that's not really a new idea. In fact, the current ESS policy, and I forget exactly what year it was originally adopted, but it's been around for several years, says that it defines the term qualified county recorder. And basically, a qualified county recorder is defined to be somebody from a county who is a member of the 28-year agreement. That's already its current policy, but it doesn't say anything anywhere about using that term with respect to members of any subcommittees. So we're not introducing a new idea. We're introducing the language for the first time in a section to say that that the chair should appoint members of subcommittees from qualified county recorder nominations. So it's kind of a wording type of a edit, but what you're effectively doing is you're saying that both members of the ESS coordinating committee and any subcommittees need to be from counties participating in the 28-year agreement, which today is everybody. So it doesn't exclude anybody. It just says, we have that expectation. And that has been in the policy for the ESS committee for a number of years. Lost the sharing, Samantha. Did I do something? Can you all see the?
No, we've only got you now.
Okay.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay. So before I move on, those are sort of the precursor, before we get into the finance subcommittee itself, the precursor changes that are suggested based on the input that we received and also based on current practice. So let me stop and answer any questions you may have about that before we move on.
I just have a comment that there are some, when we added, I think the policy stated recorder or deputy recorder, and some offices don't have deputy recorders. They may have administrative assistants. So we kind of broadened, the recommendation was to broaden that as a designee of the county recorder. So just for a little more clarification, that's kind of where that came from. So.
Right. So if you look at that, next to last and last line in that new paragraph, in 1.67. So, yeah, scroll down again, please. All right, stop there. So the paragraph starts out immediately following, which means that there should be an appointment of the committees right away, more or less. And then the last two sentences use the phrase may designate a staff representative who may be nominated and appointed to serve on a subcommittee. So, the who and how many is really still going to be determined by the chair, but it does permit that to happen.
Yeah. Great.
Okay. Other questions about what's there so far?
Mhm.
Okay. Then moving on to the finance subcommittee procedures and descriptions itself. That is all found in section 1.7 of the policies and procedures. And there are some things that have been current practice that really just aren't in writing. One of those is represented in that first underlined sentence is that the subcommittee should be nominated and be representative of each of the 6 districts of the Iowa County Recorders Association. Current practice has been since the beginning, really, but it really wasn't in writing anywhere. So just to clarify that, we're adding it. Then the next thing that is I would consider current practices, it sort of repeats the idea that the Secretary of Treasurer of the ESS Coordinating Committee is a standing member, but it also adds in the treasurer of the Iowa County Recorders Association, which sort of gives the official consent and approval for Melissa, to be a voting member of the ESS committee. And I think the idea behind that is to, keep communication between the association and the ESS Coordinating Committee active and alive. So again, not a new policy, but it does put it in writing for the first time. Then there was discussion about, should there be a term limit? Should there be a term limit on the finance subcommittee from the standpoint of encouraging new blood to come in and not having the same people year after year after year? But there was also the idea expressed that, it might be a good idea to actually have somebody serve multiple terms because it does take a while to learn the nomenclature and understand the budget and all the things that go with it. So you don't want to make that term limitation too short. And I may be wrong, but just kind of reading between the lines of what we were hearing everybody saying, it seemed like the sweet spot was 3 terms, which would be 3 2-year terms. And it also makes reference to the consecutive terms. So if somebody served a couple of terms and then they got off for a while, theoretically they should come back on to the finance subcommittee after another term. But it does kind of put that idea of term limitation into the policy for the first time. And so before I move on, there are 2 kind of codification of current practices in that first paragraph, but there's one new concept there. And so let me pause and just ask if you have any questions about that.
No.
Okay, I'm moving on, and we can come back to any topic if you want, obviously. So the next paragraph, which is new language, is it also kind of contains a blend of codifying current practice and some new elements as well. So one that is a current practice is that the finance subcommittee for the last number of years, thanks to Stacy, has designated somebody to serve as the chair of the finance subcommittee. This goes just a little bit further and asks that the subcommittee designate a chair and a vice chair so that if, for whatever reason, Stacy can't, or whoever the chair is can't lead the meeting that time, that another member of the subcommittee would be asked to do that. And then they wouldn't be surprised by it because they already knew that they were the vice chair. So it's not really a new policy. It adds another element to it, but I would consider it a codification of the existing practice. Another existing practice is that if you're in that role of chair or vice chair, you don't lose your voting privileges. You can make motions and vote. That has been the current practice. And just in case there was any doubt, we're just adding that into the policy. So that is being stated directly. A new element is the change in the quorum. So the way the ESS coordinating committee currently works is it doesn't have a specific definition of a quorum. It's kind of a majority. It's just that whoever's present, that constitutes a quorum. And that's how the finance subcommittee has been operating as well. So you sort of implemented it before the policy was actually adopted by asking for a quorum at the beginning of today's meeting. That wasn't necessarily necessary under the current policy, but it was a demonstration of how it would work. And so the proposal is to suggest that a simple majority of the appointed members, including the two standing members from the treasurer's role, for the ESS committee and association. You take the appointed members and then combine it with those two, you get a number, and the quorum would be a simple majority of that group. So basically 5 people, right? I mean, if you have 6 representatives from each district, and then 2 standing members, you've got, 7 people, right? Right,
Mhm.
6, 7, 8. You've got 8 total people. And so 4 would be 50-50, but it's not a simple majority, so it would go up to 5. So the suggested baseline practice would be, to have the equivalent of 5 people at a meeting in order to be able to conduct business. You might, I'm not saying that that's perfect either. We have had meetings where several people have not been able to participate, and maybe 4 is the right number. So I'm not here to make recommendations to you on that. I'm just kind of laying out the facts and telling you what we wrote, and that is something that you can modify or change. So that is probably the main element that might be kind of a new twist on the procedures in the finance subcommittee. The other 2 in this paragraph really are codifying those things that already exist. So again, because there are several substantive things here, let me pause and see if you have any questions or comments about that.
I just want to throw this out there to the members that if you think about, so we're now on a calendar cycle. So the term follows after the ESS coordinating committee nominates you. So really, does it have to be spelled out that after the coordinating committee meets, then the chair is the one that starts their term? I don't know. I don't know if I'm at, do we need more clarification that this is a calendar year, but we can't do the rules until, I don't know if I'm even asking a very good question. I'm just thinking about being a member, becoming the member based on the ESS coordinating committee chair. They say, yep, okay, Sherry Jones, you're on it. And then we have to decide who's the chair and vice chair. Would that be at the February meeting? You know, just, we need more clarification? Do you guys think? I'm just posing a question. Or maybe I didn't make it clear.
Well, I think I understand what you're saying. So, in this particular cycle, this policy had not yet been adopted, right?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
but we are going to have a ESS coordinating committee meeting next week,
Mhm.
for this organizational purpose, right? But
Mhm.
it happens to occur after the finance subcommittee.
Right, right.
So,
Yeah.
I think going forward, from a procedural point of view, you'd want to try to have the organizational meeting before the date of the finance subcommittee meeting in
Mhm.
January, so that everything would be in the proper order. We're already on a calendar year cycle,
Yeah.
so the terms of office really don't change any. But the timing of the organizational meeting of the finance subcommittee, it might require in in a particular year that maybe the finance subcommittee has to meet a little bit later in the month
Yeah.
to make sure that the ESS committee can do its job. That didn't work out this year. On the other hand, we haven't really adapted the policy yet. So I think there is a way to orchestrate it so that it will work in the proper order.
Yeah. Or maybe it just says following the ESS coordinating committee chair appointment or organizational meeting or something. Maybe it's just so it's clear for whoever will take this over in 5 or 10 years, Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a
I,
comment.
I think it's something you want to consider, okay, before anything is finalized. But I think it should work if administratively you get the committee meetings happening in the right order. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah. Okay.
Other
And
other questions or comments about that paragraph?
a couple of comments in the chat. Sherry, or a quote, special ESS meeting to establish the subcommittee. So Anne said, good thinking, Stacy. I was just so it's clear. That's what we're trying to do with these. That was the goal, is to clarify some of the things that we've been doing, common practice, but spell it out a little more. So then if someone was interested in becoming on the subcommittee meeting or subcommittee member, they know the expectation and what is what's required or what exactly their role would be and when it starts and that type of thing. So, okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's move on, and then we can come back. So the modification to 1.7 subsection 2, just adding the term ESS finance. That's just a wording clarification. There's no substantive policy there. But I would advance ahead to section 1.7 subsection 3 relating to the review and approval of financial reports. And again, I would put this in the category of sort of codifying current practice, but the practice has been that this group does review and present information to the full ESS coordinating committee on a quarterly basis, um, to provide not all the detailed financial reports that you guys review, but to make sure that they're getting a proper picture financially at their quarterly meetings, and not only receive quarterly information, but year-to-date financial reports. That's pretty much what we do today. So just to kind of clarify, here is something that, it is expected that the ESS committee gives approval to financial reports. They may not be the monthly reports, but they are expected to do that. And then the same is true for budgets. That there is an expectation that while the Finance Subcommittee may be the initial review or may be the initial oversight of any proposed budget or budget amendment, that it is expected that the ESS Coordinating Committee is the one that's going to give the final approval. And so, you look at the language in that first paragraph, or the paragraph 1.7 subsection 3, and then you tie it to the last bullet point in section 1.74. Those two things kind of go together to help clarify the flow, if you will, of financial reporting and approvals from the Finance Subcommittee, but ultimately by the full ESS Coordinating Committee. Then I don't know if this is going to answer the question fully, but I took a shot at it. And that is that there was an idea advanced that maybe there could be just some more description about what the budget process is. And what we did is try to strike a balance to really say, well, these are the steps that we typically go through when we're preparing a budget or a budget amendment. So that includes a review of financial trends and indicators. Then it includes a review of a draft line item budget or budget amendment prepared by the staff and reviewed with the Finance Subcommittee and the ESS Coordinating Committee on a quarterly basis. We don't necessarily always do a budget amendment quarterly, but in recent history, we have been doing quarterly budget amendments. So describing that review of a draft line by line. And then another thing that has happened that is a part of the standard process is that in addition to the review of the spreadsheet, so to speak, there's a detailed memorandum that provides an explanation of the changes. And that has been a part of our current practice of developing and then reviewing and then ultimately recommending and approving both the budget and the budget amendments, which is addressed in the final bullet point. We could have tried to go deeper into it. So if you look, for example, at city budget processes, they have certain dates that you have to meet and certain other guidelines that are followed, and you could do that. But on a practical level, we don't have an ESS clerk, okay, and we just don't have the bandwidth to add a really heavily bureaucratic process and a schedule to the budgeting issue. So what we try to do is be timely, be agile. Quarterly meetings coming up. We know quarterly reports are due, year-to-date reports are due. We kind of know where we stand with the budget, and it's an opportunity to make some adjustments. And so that just kind of becomes a part of the meeting preparation on a quarterly basis that, it's time to do that. And that just becomes a regular part of the process. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that that's the way it should be forever or it's the only way, but within the capacity that as a team and a staff, what we are able to do, what we're doing right now seems to work okay. And I think we are fulfilling goals of being transparent, providing timely notice, explaining and answering every question and every detail to the satisfaction of the committees. And I'm not sounding like self-promotion here, but I think the team does a pretty good job of that. But this would add some language to the policies and procedures that would more clearly describe, what the process actually is. So that was, I think, one of the more notable external suggestions that we received, and so I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about that. Okay, and then last but not least, we'll go to the last page of this and look at the provisions relating to the expenditure of reserve funds. And, in reviewing the current policy, it does have a specific reference that expenditures of restricted reserves have to have the approval of the ESS Coordinating Committee. Well, our practice has also been to always have the approval of the committees for any expenditure from the software development and equipment maintenance reserve. And so, when we had the finance subcommittee, we may not be having every detail worked out, but I think we've got a pretty good record of saying, hey, finance subcommittee, we have a proposed expenditure that we're going to be taking to the ESS coordinating committee. We want to make sure you know about it, and then we report back to you later on after it's done, and then we end up taking those actual decisions to the full ESS coordinating committee to make action. So the restricted operating reserve and the software development reserve, our existing practice is to always take those to the ESS coordinating committee, except for the fact that the current policy didn't say it explicitly. So now we're adding that explicit statement to it. Then the other two reserves, those are intended to be more timely, more flexible. So, we do backfile reduction every month, and we spend reduction reserve funds on it. Really doesn't fit the category of needing to be pre-approved. We're just doing it. And I think the same would be said of unrestricted reserve funds, even though we really don't do that very often. And the unrestricted reserve has always been intended to be, if we were ever in a cash flow pinch, for whatever reason, let's say certain expenditures came in higher than expected, and we needed to figure out what to do with it. Well, if there was a time crunch on it too, we might use unrestricted reserves as needed, and that is something that that as your administrator, I would approve or not approve of, and your next administrator would be in the same position to do that. I can generally say since 2017, I'm almost 100% sure that we've never actually expended unrestricted reserve funds. Unrestricted reserve is really there, kind of intended as if we really needed it, that we would have the authority to use it. Ordinarily, if we have a reserve expenditure planned or we're thinking about it, we're going to take that through the subcommittee and the full committee process. But we do have the authority to use unrestricted reserves if it's absolutely necessary, which, as I said, I don't believe it's happened since 2017. So with that, members of the subcommittee, this is a draft that is intended to reflect the input and the conversations that we have had, and I would welcome your input. If you go back up to the top and look at the agenda, this is a declared item that you can take action on, and you can take whatever action you want. You could offer amendments. You could approve it and recommend that the ESS Coordinating Committee adopt it, or you should defer it for another period of time and study it further. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I would await your direction.
Thanks, Phil. So, comments. What are you thinking? How are you guys feeling? It's awful quiet.
I was just thinking that, I mean, we have a lot going on currently. I I don't know if with this new draft, maybe send it back out to our districts to get feedback. I mean, I don't think anything's extremely pressing, but I guess that's just my opinion.
Sherry said, I like our formalizing for the future is good. I like Mel's idea. Give us a little more time if you have more feedback from your district. And maybe they'll probably review this a little bit. Will they have an idea at the coordinating committee that this is being talked about?
Yes, I have generally informed the coordinating committee that and communicated with them, and in fact, have asked for input from them prior to this time. I do have it as an informational item on the agenda for the organizational meeting next week, not an action item. And we haven't started to put the agenda together for the February meeting. So you can do anything you think is appropriate.
And Geraldine said, I think it's a good idea to send back out to our districts and give feedback. And I think including the memo would be good as well. And they can always come back and listen to this meeting as well with the explanations too, for more clarification. So is the consensus of the group is to not act on the proposed changes, and we'll table it?
I can make
Table
a
it to
motion to
February?
table it if you want.
Sure, that'd be great, Mel. I was struggling. So the motion is to table it until we have more information from our districts. Table it, and we can touch on it in February.
I'll
Does that
second that
sound
motion. This is Geraldine.
okay? That sounds great. Oh, welcome, Kelly. Hi. So it's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. It's like Sherry and Kelly are aye in the chat pod, and I know Susan had to step away. So opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So we will get some more information out to you
Yeah.
all so you can push it back out to the district.
Yeah, I would just maybe more explicitly make a request to the members of the finance subcommittee to do that very thing. To send a copy of the draft, it's truly labeled draft for discussion, to take copies of it that you have and forward it to the members of your district and gather what additional input that you receive, and you can discuss it again at your next meeting. I believe that your February meeting is going to occur prior to the ESS coordinating committee meeting in February. The ESS meeting is currently scheduled for February 19th. So if you had sufficient feedback and you wanted to take action and advance it, it could be done in a timely way. But if you feel even more discussion is needed, that's understandable as well. So I just hope that we, from a team perspective, tried to capture the input that we received, and then maybe put some of our own experiences about, well, this could be better, that should be better, into it to give you something to think about. So I hope we accomplish that goal.
I just want to say I think you did. I think you did a great job in putting this together and the explanations. I just think with the feedback that we received or didn't receive, maybe one more ask would be good. So
Mhm.
I think you guys did great.
Thanks, Mel. Okay, any other comments, questions for the good of the group? If not, February 5th, 2025, we'll be back here at 9 o'clock for our next meeting.
2026.
Or 26. Oh, yeah, we need to change
Yeah.
that at the bottom. See, I'm just like a parrot. I just repeat what I read. No.
I
So
just noticed it.
I I apologize. I have to own that one. So
Oh,
that's not the first time this year that I've overlooked it. So sorry about that.
no, I've been doing it for 8 days, so I'm right there with you, Phil. So thank you, everybody. Always good to see you guys.
Thank
care.
you.
Yep.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you.